I think one issue that you've touched upon is something so important, which is that a lot of the big governmental organizations have so much, whether it's an actual government, whether it's the United Nations, whether it's the World Bank, whether it's the WHO, whether it's a corporation, is there's so much red tape, so many logistics, so much infrastructure for them to have to go through, that even though the intention is pure, I believe the intention is pure, otherwise you wouldn't have the organizations. I mean, I might be wrong, but my instinct is that we're not seeing the type of corruption where people at WHO or the World Bank or the United Nations are taking the money and going home with it in their pockets. I don't think it's like that. I think the money is there, the money is being utilized. The problem, as you've seen, is in the trickle-down effect. Somehow it seems not to be trickling down properly. And a lot of that is the reason why you see so much more of an impact with smaller non-governmental organizations than you do necessarily with the bigger organizations. When you've got an organization that's got a 100-page charter and bylaws and amendments, and you have to take a course in university to make it through their charter and their bylaws and their amendments, it's no wonder that they're not able to jump into action, and that the action ends up having to run like this through winding rivers before it actually ends up in the hands of people. That being said, don't give up on them. I think if you look over the last 50 years of history or 60 years of history, we absolutely could show great work that's been done in many countries by each of these organizations. However, the main point is that on a day-to-day basis, we can't rely on them. Yeah, they're doing their work, and if we have a broad enough vision of decades, we're going to see the work that they've accomplished. But in terms of people who are hungry right now, people who need medical care right now, people who need education right now, that's where organizations like yours and so many other organizations of people who don't have red tape, don't have bureaucracy, don't have a 150-page charter, are able to jump forward and to say, oh, you know, for example, we have a tragedy, we have a flood. You're able to jump forward and in 5 hours say, okay, here's what we need to buy. Talk to people in Delhi, talk to people in Calcutta, talk to people in Bombay. Buy this, fill trucks, send them right away. Open the doors here, set up this camp. Because there isn't that infrastructure. You don't need 5 people's stamp and signature on a proposal before it can get passed. In the long run, it's good that big organizations like that need 5 people's signature and stamps and that it has to go through that. It's not a bad process. It's a good process. It's just a process that inhibits in some ways the type of work that is immediately obvious, immediately apparent right here on the ground where you're looking for it. So that's where you're needed. And what I've seen in doing the work that we've done is that even if governments aren't coming forward to support you, even if the UN isn't giving you a grant and the World Health Organization isn't doing it, individuals will. Individuals see work that's being done and they will come forward and they will say, we want to be a part of it. We want to help. And so they will help. The last point to mention about this, though, is that it's really easy for us to think that all of these big organizations are the ones who should be doing the work. And we turn around and we look at poverty and we look at hunger and we look at illiteracy and we say, why aren't The World Health Organization, the World Bank, the United Nations, all of these governments, aren't they supposed to be doing something here? And we look around and we wonder why they're not. But the truth of the matter is, we have more control in our hands, even if we don't run organizations, just in the choices that we make of what we eat, what we buy, how we live. I mean, for example, every single day, 40,000 children die of starvation. Every day. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. 40,000 children. But we actually produce enough grain in the world, rice, wheat, soy, to give every person on earth 2 loaves of bread a day. We could feed 10 billion people a day, and there's only 7 billion on earth. The problem is the way that it's being cycled. The fact that about 70% of the world's grain is going into the livestock industry. It's going into the production of hamburgers and hot dogs and chicken McNuggets and really non-vegetarian food. It's not being fed to hungry people. It's being fed to the animals that are being mass-produced to become our lunch and our dinners. So if people literally made the decision to just eat vegetarian, for example, not everyone can open an NGO, not everyone can start schools, not everyone can do the work you're doing. But if people just make a personal decision, I'm going to eat vegetarian. I'm not going to buy products that are tested on animals. I'm not going to buy things that are built out of slave labor. We actually could make a huge difference in the world.